I received the divorce papers by email while I was still in the desert of Afghanistan. 13 years of marriage ended in a PDF attachment. My name is Ethan, 42 years old, Staff Sergeant with the 101st Airborne Division. I'd been in Kandahar for 4 months when Chloe decided she was done waiting. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." The message itself was 3 sentences long. She'd already filed the paperwork, she'd already emptied our joint account, and she'd already moved her new boyfriend, Blake Morrison, into our house in Spokane. The shock hit me like a physical blow to the heart, but strangely, there was no scream or outburst. Just a chilling numbness. I read the email twice, closed my laptop, took a quick shower in the communal stall, and got dressed for my shift. I said nothing to anyone. When I got back to my bunk that night, I replied with one word: understood. That was it. No argument, no begging, no threats. Sergeant Riley, my bunkmate, noticed something was off. "You good, man?" he asked, not looking up from his book. "Yeah," I said, "just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military guys know when to leave things alone. The dull ache remained, but the military resilience forged in me wouldn't allow me to break down in front of others. Truth is, I wasn't surprised. 6 months before my deployment, things had changed. Small things. Chloe stopped asking about my day, started working late at the dental office where she answered phones, started going to the gym 3 times a week but never seemed to break a sweat. New clothes, new friends I never met, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her, didn't start checking her messages or following her around. That's not who I am. But I wasn't blind either. Those small but continuous changes had painted a worrying picture in my mind, a harbinger of the storm to come. So I made some quiet moves of my own, nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured important documents in a storage unit across town. My birth certificate, marriage license, house deed with only my name on it thanks to the VA loan, military benefits paperwork. I also moved my grandfather's watch and my mom's old silver to the same unit, things that mattered to me. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting part of my pay there, not enough that she'd notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from zero if things went south. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a coworker, not a husband heading to war. I should have known then, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. That moment was like a slow-motion film, every small detail etched into my mind, from the perfunctory hug to her empty gaze. A feeling of betrayal began to creep in, not an explosive anger, but a cold, bone-deep chill. What she didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment. And what she didn't understand was that I never start fights, but I do finish them. The sadness gave way to a steely resolve. The anger didn't explode outward. It transmuted into focused energy. I knew this wasn't just a personal matter anymore. This was a battle that needed meticulous planning. This was only the beginning. I met Chloe at a friend's barbecue in 2010. I was home between tours, staying with my buddy David in Spokane. Chloe was finishing nursing school but ended up working admin at a dental practice instead. "Less stress," she said. We were married 8 months later. It was a whirlwind romance, initially full of passion, where differences were masked by novelty and love. She seemed to like the strength and stability of a soldier, and I was drawn to her grace and radiant smile. Chloe used to say she was proud of my service, though she never quite understood it. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist, no military in her family. She'd ask when I was going to get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army was my career, not just a temporary gig. This difference in perspective, like a tiny crack, began to infiltrate the foundation of our relationship. We bought our house in 2014. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the VA loan was in my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what married people do. Share things. These personal losses tested our relationship, but Chloe seemed to drift further away. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each time I came home, Chloe seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, like she was playing a role she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife, she told me once after I mentioned possibly re-upping for another 4 years. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I understood that, but the Army was the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2019, things started changing. Small stuff at first. Chloe got irritated when I called during her girls' nights, started talking about how her friend Melissa had divorced her husband and was living her best life now. She started making comments about how we didn't really have anything in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Those words were like small knives plunging deep into my heart, painting a picture of inevitable collapse. Helplessness swelled within me. I tried to mend things, but only met with indifference. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the new clothes, the gym memberships she rarely used. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I handle things, never have. My dad taught me to think before I speak, to be sure before I act. So I watched, and I prepared, quietly, because my gut was telling me something was coming, and in this life, you learn to trust your gut. The sadness and anger had transformed into focus and a meticulous plan, ready for whatever lay ahead. 2 weeks after getting the divorce email, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A notification from our bank app, another withdrawal, $8,500.00. Almost everything that was left. I set my fork down and opened the app. The joint account balance was down to $2.37. Our savings, $47,000.00 we'd built up over years, was gone completely, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. This shock was no longer a surprise. It was confirmation of every worst premonition. Murphy, one of the guys from my unit, glanced over. Bad news? I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night, I called our bank from the base phone center. Turns out Chloe had been moving money for weeks. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers started the day after I'd deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their kids, their wives, their parents. Normal life happening all around me while mine was burning down. That's when Sergeant Riley found me. Heard Alvarez say you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal stuff, but Riley had pulled me out of a bad situation in Kandahar once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Riley didn't give me the usual, no, I'm sorry, or that's rough, or you'll find someone better. He just asked, what's your plan? Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our home security system, something Chloe probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange truck in our driveway, a man I'd never seen before walking our dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt, and there was Chloe, laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me, not anger, exactly, something colder, clearer. I closed the laptop and pulled out my phone, made a list. Call David Miller, Army buddy who became a lawyer, check the VA loan terms, contact Master Sergeant about emergency leave, review home refinance documents Chloe mentioned casually last year, check the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning a mission. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about strategy. At 500 before my shift started, I sent an email to David with the subject line, "Need legal help, discreet and urgent." His reply came an hour later, "Call me, secure line only." When I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell, I didn't need to threaten, I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch, and let her own actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Chloe I was coming home, didn't call, didn't text. I just checked into a motel in downtown Spokane under a different name and contacted David. We met at a diner 10 miles outside of town. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel like it too," I replied. Even though I tried to keep my composure in Afghanistan, exhaustion and simmering pain were etched onto my face. David handed me a folder. Everything we discussed, the house deed, loan documents, bank statements, and this, he pulled out a separate paper. "Found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a refinance application with my signature on it, except it wasn't my signature. Not quite. Someone had tried to copy it but missed details. The middle initial was wrong and the stroke pattern wasn't mine." "Chloe did this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. David nodded. 3 months ago. Used the equity to pull out $30,000, 0 cents. Your signature is required for that since the VA loan is in your name only. Forge my signature, take out a loan against our house, then clear out our accounts and divorce me, I said. Busy woman, huh? My voice was icy, devoid of emotion. The feeling of betrayal had now transformed into a steely determination. But Blake, her lover, was a known felon. "It gets better," David said. "She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. He's got a record. 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. This information hit me like a lightning bolt, turning my personal story into something much darker and more dangerous. This wasn't just an affair or a typical divorce anymore. This was a calculated scheme. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm in the face of these shocking details. "What are my options?" I asked. "Several," David said. "But first you need to decide what you want." I thought about it. The initial pain and anger had gradually subsided, replaced by a stronger will. Justice. I want what's legally mine, and I want her to understand consequences. This was the turning point, where I shifted from victim to active seeker of justice. David smiled. "Then here's what we do." We mapped out a detailed plan, step by step, like a military operation. There was no room for error or emotion. Everything had to be executed precisely and legally. I felt a chilling clarity wash over me. This was no longer a battle of a broken heart. This was a war for justice. I was ready, and Blake and Chloe would soon find that out. The next day I drove past our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone, but Chloe's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while. Thought about knocking on the door, confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met with the loan officer who had processed the refinance. I showed him my military ID, showed him the real signature on my driver's license, showed him the forged document. His face went pale. His astonishment confirmed all my suspicions, and a small sense of satisfaction crept into my gut. "I'll need to report this immediately," he said. "I understand," I said. "I've already filed a police report." That night I got a text from Chloe. "Who have you been talking to at the bank? Blake said someone was asking questions." I didn't respond. The next day I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud. I also registered formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. The feeling of control was slowly returning. A powerful sensation stronger than any anger I had ever experienced. 2 days later, Chloe called. I let it go to voicemail. "Ethan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." Like adults, the same words from her email. I still didn't respond. Her anger over the phone only reinforced my resolve. David called that afternoon. "They froze the refinance money, and there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your truck, right? Through the one in my name, yeah. He got pulled over this morning, driving on a suspended license from those They impounded the vehicle." "Good," I said. "He also had some interesting things in the truck, prescription pads from the dental office where Chloe works." "They weren't blank," I closed my eyes. "She's been stealing prescription pads?" "Looks that way," David said. "The police are investigating." This news stunned me. Not just financial fraud, but drug crime too. I hung up and sat on the edge of the motel bed. This was getting bigger than I'd expected. Part of me wanted to call Chloe, warn her. Old habits? But then I remembered the security camera footage. My house, my dog, my life, given away like it meant nothing. The sadness mixed with a cold fury welled up, dispelling any thoughts of compassion. No. This was the path now. I couldn't turn back. And honestly, I didn't want to. The profound sense of betrayal had forged me into a different man, one no longer soft on those who had trampled all over me. I was ready to watch the dominoes fall completely. Every action I took from now on would be a firm step on the path to justice, no matter the cost. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. His name was Thompson, a short guy with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. "This happens more often than you'd think," he said, spreading documents across his desk. "Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity." "What happens now?" I asked. "We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone." "How much?" "About half. $14,600.00." A feeling of unease rose within me. A portion of the money had slipped beyond the reach of justice. I leaned forward. "Where did it go?" Thompson hesitated. "I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my name forged, my money stolen." He nodded slowly, then turned his computer screen toward me. "These are the transfers out of the refinance account." I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Marcus Thorne, not Blake. Someone else I'd never heard of. "Marcus Thorne is who?" I asked. Thompson shrugged. "Not my department, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records." I called David as soon as I left the bank. "Marcus Thorne?" he repeated. "Let me run a check." An hour later he called back. "Got it." Marcus Thorne is a real estate agent, specializes in quick sales, cash deals. "She was planning to sell our house," I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow. A cold dread ran down my spine, not sadness, but pure, seething indignation. "Looks that way," David said. "The deposits were probably earnest money to get him moving on a listing. But here's where it gets interesting. Thorne has done business with Blake Morrison before." "Blake Morrison is your wife's boyfriend?" "Yes. They've closed 3 deals together in the past 2 years." I sat down on a park bench, trying to process this. So this wasn't just Chloe leaving me for some guy. This was what, a planned operation? "Maybe," David said carefully. "I did some digging into Blake Morrison. He has a pattern. Gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. 3 cases I've found so far. Each time the woman's home gets sold well below market value to one of Thorne's clients. Blake gets a cut, then he moves on. And Chloe, she knew about this? Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too, or maybe she's in on it." I rubbed my face. This wasn't just about Chloe betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated. And other military families had been victims. Anger flared as I realized countless others might have been deceived. Other soldiers enduring the very pain I felt. "What do we do?" I asked. "I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crime Division," David said. "This crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested." That night, I sat in my motel room with a beer, thinking about everything, wondering if Chloe had been playing me our entire marriage, or if she'd gotten swept up in Blake's scheme, wondering if it even mattered. I was ready to see justice served, not just for myself. My phone buzzed. "Chloe, again. Ethan, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud and Blake got arrested for driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening." I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed, "Who is Marcus Thorne?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about. 14,600 multiple transfers, house listing?" I wrote. No response for 10 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, David called. "FBI wants to meet." They've been investigating Blake and Thorne for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open." For the first time since getting that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. I met with the FBI agents at their field office in Spokane, Agent Harper and Agent Reed. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents David and I had gathered. "Your case helps establish a pattern," Agent Harper explained. "Shows intent, organization, makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents." "What about Chloe?" I asked. "My wife, my ex-wife?" The agents exchanged looks. "We're still determining her level of involvement," Reed said carefully. "Did she ever mention financial difficulties, pressure to sell the house?" I thought back. "She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary." Harper made a note. "When did that start?" "About 6 months ago, around the time she must have met Blake." "And the refinance?" Reed asked. "She never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed." They asked more questions, took more notes. When we finished, Harper handed me her card. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Blake. We need to build this case carefully." I nodded. "Understood." That evening, I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our house. Blake's truck was back, must have gotten it out of impound. Chloe's car was gone. My phone buzzed, text from Chloe. "Ethan, we need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow." I showed the text to David over breakfast the next day. "Don't go," he advised. "Nothing good can come from talking to her right now." "I won't," I said, "but I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her." We drove to our house at 9:30 IEM, parked across the street at 9:45. Chloe came out, got in her car, and drove away, heading toward Riverfront Park. "Now what?" David asked. "Now we wait," I said. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up, real estate agent logo on the door. "Marcus Thorne?" Blake came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. "Should we follow them?" David asked. I shook my head. "No need. I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior. They upload to cloud storage." David smiled. "You didn't mention that before." "Never came up," I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and angled the screen so David could see. Thorne and Blake were in our living room. Thorne was taking photos. Blake was pointing at features of the house. I turned up the volume. "Should list by the end of the week," Thorne was saying. "I've got a buyer interested already. Cash offer as usual." "How much?" Blake asked. "420. We list at 470. They offer 420. Everybody's happy." "What about the husband?" Blake asked. "Chloe says he's causing trouble." Thorne waved dismissively. "Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away." I turned to David. "You getting this?" He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Harper with a short message. "Happening now." 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Thorne and Blake out in handcuffs. My phone rang. "Agent Harper." "We got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme," she said. "Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We're going to need a formal statement from you." "Of course," I said. "And Mr. Briggs, your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed." I looked down the street. Chloe was standing on her lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as FBI agents carried boxes of documents from our house. "What happens to her?" I asked. "That depends," Harper said, "on what she knew and on what you want." I watched Chloe for a long moment. 13 years of marriage. Good years at the beginning, before whatever this had become. "I just want what's right," I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Blake and Thorne both took plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a 3-state operation targeting military families. Chloe maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme, said Blake had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing. She said the refinance was his idea. she'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, a signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. No fault, clean break, all things considered. On the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Harper. "Blake Morrison was sentenced today," she said. 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Thorne got 12. Thought you'd want to know." "Thank you," I said. "There's something else," she added. "We found evidence they've done this to 11 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you." After we hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment, watching the sunset, thinking about those other families. Other men who deployed, thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness. I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down Blake and Thorne's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes, things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Chloe. "I never meant for things to end this way." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house. Couldn't stand to live in it anymore. Too many memories, too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside of Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of land, a creek running behind it. No neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough. I got a dog, a German Shepherd named Scout, started doing carpentry work for locals, nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Chloe, wondered where she ended up. David heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office, starting over, I guess. I didn't hate her anymore, didn't much feel anything about her, to be honest. She'd made her choices, and so had I. One evening I got a letter from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed when Blake and Thorne tried to run their scheme on her. The FBI had given her my name as part of the case. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you saved our home. Thank you. You fought back when it would have been easier to just walk away." I read it twice, then pinned it to my refrigerator. Some days, when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I'd look at that letter and remember that something good had come from all of it. Last I heard, Blake was still in prison. Thorne too. The system worked, for once. As for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet day at a time, building something new. Something that couldn't be stolen or forged or betrayed. Something that was just mine. Infidelity isn't just the breaking of a vow, it's the shattering of trust in oneself and in core values. Yet, even from the ashes of devastation, a path to justice and a stronger, new beginning can be found.